think you asked me if I think the controversies around this bill is necessary. And yeah, what I was saying is this is a democracy. The controversy is a reflection of the democracy. In a democracy, when we make laws that are as important as this one, especially law that's going to affect the people, we want everyone's views, whether they're in support of, whether they're opposed to, all of these views are going to be taken into consideration as we make the law. So we really welcome this lively discourse surrounding the bill, and it shows that people care about these issues. Whether it's necessary, I wouldn't say it's a necessary controversy, but I know for a fact that it's a necessary law. This law is needed now, and in fact, it is long overdue. The way we're dealing with women's reproductive health and reproductive rights in Sierra Leone are governed by a law based from 1861. This is a very colonial law. It was enacted 163 years ago. Even the country we borrowed this law from, amended this law decades ago. So yes, as a country, as leaders, the state's responsibility is to make laws for the greater good of people and to protect the lives of its citizens. That is what this bill is about. The Safe Motherhood and Reproductive Health Bill is one of the tools, one of the critical tools that the Ministry of Health and the government of Sierra Leone is going to use to continue to improve reproductive health service provision across the country for women, so that we continue to reduce maternal mortality, we continue to reduce infant mortality, we continue to improve women's lives and well-being. Right now, Sierra Leone has a maternal mortality rate of 443 per 100,000 live births. This is a big progress from where we're at 10, 15 years ago, when we had one of the worst in the world. In 2017, we had a maternal mortality of about 717, sorry. So in 5 years, 4 to 5 years, we had a drop of 60%, more than 60% in maternal mortality, because of investment in the health system by both the government and partners.
So that's 60% progress, you say?
Yes.
But that came about even under the current laws we have, without legalizing abortion.
Exactly. But then just remember, it took almost 20 years, maybe 15 to 20 years, for us to no longer be among the countries with the worst maternal mortality in the world. Now, all countries are striving for SDG targets. 2030, we should reduce maternal mortality by less than 70 per 100,000 live births.
Let's put the pin, Doc, in the right spot. So the whole Safe Motherhood Bill isn't the contention, the whole of it.
Okay.
It is that portion that speaks to abortion,
and that
brings the contention.
I will come to that. So again, our goal as a country or as countries is to achieve SDG targets, right? What we are saying in Sierra Leone is 70 per 100,000 live birth is still too much. One woman dying from a preventable cause is too much. So we are aiming for 0 preventable deaths. The only way we will get to 0 preventable deaths in as short a time as possible is to address all the causes of women dying from preventable deaths.
Including abortion.
Including unsafe abortion.
So let's take, we learn as we go. There are countries that come to learn from Sierra Leone.
Yes.
So we also learn from other countries.
Exactly.
So the countries in the world that legalized abortion, what impact did that still make in these areas of the problems we're speaking of in Sierra Leone?
I'm really happy you asked that question. So let's take Ghana, for example, because it's probably the closest country to Sierra Leone. We had the similar laws. I think theirs was enacted initially in 1863. So similar, but they reversed it. So they decriminalized abortion in 1960 and even expanded the provisions in 1985 or so. When Ghana did this, and it's not just Ghana, it's Kenya, it's Tunisia, it's Ethiopia. When they enacted a similar bill like this one, they registered a reduction in the rate of maternal deaths, a reduction in the rates of abortion in the first place. Because I cannot give you the figures.
I asked because we have, as you earlier put it, achieved that of about 60%.
Yes.
But still without legalizing abortion.
So again, we're talking now directly about the effects of the bill when it was enacted in similar countries. So after enacting this bill, they recorded a reduction in maternal mortality, a reduction in abortion rates because of a reduction in unwanted pregnancies, a reduction in sexually transmitted infections, and even a reduction, an increase at the age with which young girls were having sex, because their bill, which is very similar to this bill, focused on prevention. Prevention in terms of preventing unwanted pregnancies by educating girls about making the right choices and also expanding family planning services across the country.
You say unwanted pregnancy?
Yes. Yes, unwanted or unintended pregnancies. That, in fact, that is the crew of these arguments, right? In Sierra Leone, we have 350 pregnancies a year. This is fact. 38% of those pregnancies are unintended. This amounts to between 130 to 150,000. Those are unintended pregnancies. Of those, 90,000 in 2021, 90,000, more than 90,000 of those pregnancies were terminated. Why? Because you have a high rate of unwanted pregnancies. The women seek to terminate, whether the law is there or not.
So shouldn't the focus be on helping prevent unwanted pregnancies as opposed to helping abort unwanted pregnancies?
So you're quite right. The primary focus of this bill is preventing unwanted pregnancies in the first place.
Except the abortion part.
No, but let us be realistic. Even when you do everything to prevent unwanted pregnancies, which is what we will do, there will still be cases of unwanted pregnancies. There would be people who are raped, who didn't plan to get pregnant. There will be children, right now we have them in our society, who suffer incest. And there are still cases where the women are pregnant, they want to be pregnant, but the pregnancy is threatening their life. Ectopic pregnancy, eclampsia. The only way to save these women is to terminate the pregnancy.
So
the
what
law
is the
has
bill
to make
proposing?
provision.
An open check to have sex as much as you want, get pregnant, terminate, or legalizing abortion only in such extreme circumstances of rape, incest, and complicated pregnancies that has to do with the life of either the child or the mother.
Yeah, so the law, the big focus of the law is to say, first of all, unsafe abortion is happening in huge numbers, more than 90,000. And this is despite the law, and women are dying from this. What this bill is saying, let us regulate these unsafe abortions that are happening,
so what's
that
the
women don't
regulation
die.
you're proposing in this?
So,
is it to say, go and have as much sex as you want and get an abortion, or just you're only allowed to legally based on XYZ circumstances?
First of all, the bill is saying prevent unintended pregnancies as much as possible, and we will support you to do this, right? When you get pregnant, we will do everything to encourage you to keep this pregnancy and support you through the pregnancy up to safe delivery. If you are pregnant and we have tried everything and you do not want to keep this pregnancy, or if you go through the horrible circumstances of rape or incest, or the pregnancy is threatening your life, then we will offer you safe options within this limit and these regulations. Pregnancy not more than 14 weeks, rape, incest, the woman's life is at risk for ectopic pregnancy or eclampsia, or the life of the fetus is not compatible with life after birth.
So those would be the only conditions that the bill is proposing?
Those are the only conditions that the bill are proposing, that safe abortion be available to these people. And also, just to add, that the bill also clearly states that it will only be offered in designated facilities that the government or the regulatory bodies have decided, and only by trained, qualified, and licensed healthcare professionals. And the bill also explicitly states that if anyone offers these services outside of those provisions, they will face the penalty.
Now, let's take this to the Minister of Information and Civic Education. Sierra Leone is a very religious country, whether in theory or practical, that's another debate on its own. But Sierra Leone is a very religious country where you have a lot of Muslims and a lot of Christians. And this abortion part of this bill has brought a contention. One of the very famous pastors as well in the country, Pastor Mambu, was in Parliament, and we got a clip from him as well of how displeased he is about this and calling on the government not to pass that abortion bit of the bill. How is the government approaching this?
Thank you very much. I think the minister started with a simple premise.
The beauty of a democracy is that we have different points of views and we can have a healthy debate. I walked into Parliament, I met the revered Reverend Mambu. Many people who know that we come from mixed families and, interreligious families. I used to actually go to his church. I know him very well. We've engaged with him. The exceptional deputy minister here who has been championing this bill is a practicing Catholic. This is a bill that was approved by cabinets. The first gentleman of this country, President Julius Maada Bio, is a devout Catholic. The number 2 man, Mohammed Julde Jallo, is a practicing Muslim. Cabinet,
we're pushing for this when both books, the Bible and the Quran, does not support abortion.
I'm laying the premise. Phebean, the Bible and the Quran, some reading of the text will suggest that if you commit adultery, you should be stoned to death. The Bible and the Quran will suggest, some reading of those texts, that if you steal, we should cut your hand. That, as in the days of Jesus, who asked the folks, if you without sin, be the first to throw the stone. The premise of this conversation is not to have a debate about the primacy of religion in our lives. Religion is important. They regulate our moral consciences. That's why when we sin, we go to the mosque, we go to the church, we pray and ask for forgiveness. The business of government, however, is to listen to all the considerations and address the felt needs of the citizens of this country. And by the way, we take an oath to do that. We put our hands on the Bible and say that's what we will do. That's our primary job. The minister just pointed out the details, the fact. Whether, the instinct, this is why I say when the bishops and the imams listen to us, we're actually on the same side on this conversation. We all want to save lives. We are all on the same side. We want to reduce unsafe abortions. We might disagree on the language here, and some get heightened, some use charged languages. But we didn't wake up in the morning thinking, oh, how can we go and promote something that's wrong? The reason President Bio is championing this bill, the reason Cabinet has approved this bill, the reason Parliament has passed a version of it before and has now listened and adopted it and made it more comprehensive is to address problems of today. And simple. 90,000 girls will seek to terminate their and women will seek to terminate their pregnancy, whether you have the law or not. 80% of them will get serious complications, including death. That's a national emergency. That is a moral imperative. That tells you when you are elected and take that oath to serve, you have a duty to respond to that problem and not to hide under, oh, well, it's against my faith. That's why I go back to adultery. It's against our faith, but we all sin. We are not saying we're going to now impose laws on you that because you have sinned, we should impose a death sentence on you. God forbid that if my child commits fornication, if I had a daughter and she commits what you call fornication and she gets pregnant and I say, oh, because you have sinned, the state should look you and let you die. That's what is happening today. Our laws are from 1861. That is 163 years ago. That's the current law. It is so archaic, it's embarrassing. What this law is doing is to update that. It's done it in the most reasonable, in the most open-minded, following years of consultation. It's comprehensive. It is not an extremist law by any stretch. By the way, in the UK, which gave us this law that we have from 1861, today, their own provisions on the issue that is considered controversial are so much more broad that they allow safe termination up to 24 weeks. In this bill, we have reduced that to 14 weeks. And the scientists and doctors will tell you sometimes by 14 weeks, the woman does not even know if or whether she's pregnant. That's the fact. But we've also included common sense, reasonable provisions. If you have a report that this pregnancy is a product of rape, incest, the life of the mother is at stake, the woman will die. Her child might die. Her child might have serious problems. She might have some serious health complications. What this bill does, it says, instead of the state saying, oh, we're so religious, we're not going to do nothing, we're going to let you die. We see you dying. We know you're going to die. It says, let's put in place measures to regulate, ensure it's safe, to collect data, to punish those who will now dare, because we've given you the option that is safe, that is regulated, but those who will now dare to do it the kukujumuku way will now face the full penalty of the law.
Would you
There's
say
no way
this
any
is
religious
about
leader
human
looks at
right?
that. It is not just about human rights,
but is it also about human rights?
In fact, it's about human rights. It's also about equity. Phebean.
I asked that for a reason. I need to read you something.
Go ahead.
So there is a press release issued on the 16th of December 2024 in Washington, and that's by U.S. Congressman Chris Smith. And he's in the New Jersey 4th District, and he says, I'll read that, the header for that press release says, U.S. Congressman Chris Smith voices concern over reports of U.S. involvement with pro-abortion bill in Sierra Leone. It reads, U.S. Congressman Chris Smith, Chair of the House Global Health and Global Human Rights Subcommittee, today issued the following statement regarding reports of U.S. involvement with efforts to expand abortion in Sierra Leone. And it quotes there, it is deeply disturbing, but not terribly surprising, that we are hearing reports that the Biden administration is threatening to withhold foreign assistance to Sierra Leone unless legislators there pass the deceptively named Safe Motherhood Act legislation that would legalize abortion in Sierra Leone, a country that currently protects unborn life. Let me be clear, abortion is not health care, nor is it an internationally recognized human right. The Biden administration's pro-abortion bullying tactics and raw attempt at ideological colonialism is unacceptable. Abortion always ends the life of the unborn baby and harms the mother. Pro-life countries should be celebrated and respected for protecting unborn children and their mothers, not penalized by a pro-abortion lame duck Biden administration. I will work with the incoming Trump administration to conduct a thorough review of actions by all U.S. agencies, from USAID to the Millennium Challenge Corporation, MCC, to determine whether U.S. laws were violated by U.S. government staff through misallocation or threat of misallocation of U.S. funding in order to pressure countries to change their profile laws. Forcing a pro-abortion and woke agenda on financially vulnerable and democratic sovereign nations harms both the U.S. and our allies and is bad diplomacy. It must end. That's the end of it. What's your response?
First of all, I regret that you gave this congressman so much airtime here because we're having a conversation about Sierra Leone. I think his views are a product of an ideological debate in America. And I know this congressman because I used to live in New Jersey. He's an ideologue, he's a far-right ideologue, and it's a reflection of that. What is different about his views and what Sierra Leone is stuck. We're not ideologues here. We're not extremists in Sierra Leone. We're religious talk. I think this congressman will not even, it's probably, I don't think he will identify Sierra Leone on a map. I think he's basically just, you know, and if we told him about the fact that right now in this conversation, we have a practicing Catholic and a Muslim holding this and having a country where our president is a Muslim, is a Christian, is married to a Muslim, he will not understand that. I used to live in...
Speak to the allegations the government is being pressured by the U.S. to do this.
That's why I'm explaining that this congressman has no clue about Sierra Leone. Even if you shot him with Sierra Leone, he will not recognize that it was Sierra Leone that hit him. So I think this is a debate about Sierra Leone. President Bill's commitments to women's rights and to women's health care, to advancing gender equality, is absolutely thorough and not motivated by any external considerations. We should all be offended by even the suggestion of that. This is the president that allowed pregnant girls to go to school. A position I'm sure the congressman, again, will not understand how Sierra Leone gets to those positions. This is the president that has insisted on a law that guarantees that 30% of women will be in all elective and appointive positions. This is a president that changed the law on sexual offenses, a president that changed the law on child marriage. These are all, by the way, laws that we are way more progressive than the country that he's referring to. The cabinet of this country, 2 years ago, President Bill spoke at the African Conference on Sexual Health and Rights and said, my cabinet has unanimously approved the Safe Motherhood Bill, and we will put it to Parliament and I will support it. That's our president. Our Parliament, years ago, looked at this issue in 2015 and passed a much more comprehensive version of this bill. What this is this congressman wants to subject Sierra Leone to the same kind of scaremongering politics that they have, but that's not who we are. And that's what I invite Sierra Leoneans to say: read the bill, look at the facts, look at what is in front of us. They have a different, they cannot, you know, it's an attempt to use Sierra Leone as a pawn in an ideological debate and conversation they're having in the US. We're not interested in that.
Is it still a bill or an act? Because
it's a bill. It will become an act once Parliament passes it. The information
to the public is this was either going to be passed in a very sneaky way, so the public wouldn't capture it, and some thoughts are saying it was actually even passed into an act. What's the actual status of this?
So it's simple. Again, I think in a democracy it's important that we have fact-based and truth-based conversation. No bill in Sierra Leone can be passed in a sneaky way because it is required to go to Gazette. It's a public document. This is the kind of conversation that we've had. We held public meetings, including with the Interreligious Council weeks ago. We held meetings with so many constituents across the country. People have been inputting on this conversation for over 9 years that we've been on this journey. President Bill stood at a stage and announced this bill at an international conference 2 years ago. After the cabinet's conclusion, we posted about it. It's been a public process. Again, because sometimes when people don't want to engage on the substance, because when you read the substance of this bill, it leaves no other conclusion than it is a reasonable bill. It is way past time for us to do it. When they cannot engage on those, then they accuse you of, oh, it's trying to be sneaky. No, it cannot. It's going to go first reading, second reading. It's going to be, now it's in legislative committee, and then it's going to come back to the well, and we will do what is right for the people of our country, for the 90,000 women and girls who will seek to terminate their pregnancies, to ensure that it's safe if they choose to do that, but to make sure that first, pregnancies are wanted, to reduce unintended pregnancies, and to provide comprehensive services for our women. That's the oath we took. That's what a democracy is about. That's what leadership is about. That's what President Bill is doing.